2015's Ori and the Blind Forest is an excellent 2D action platformer with stunning visuals, an emotional soundtrack, and a huge heart. Platformers rarely put plot first, but Ori is different. The opening moments swerve from heartwarming to heart-wrenching, and this serves as the primer you need to understand what the game is all about. It's a stirring blend of whimsy and melancholy, with themes of family, friendship, kindness, light, and finding a place to belong. Despite some minor gameplay issues like simple combat and a weird save system, Ori and the Blind Forest's A+ platforming and storytelling make it shine. Its sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, improves on those weaknesses and makes the strengths even stronger. It is a masterpiece. Released in 2020, Will of the Wisps continues the tale of the light spirit Ori and the assorted creatures he calls family. Like its predecessor, it wastes no time in establishing meaningful bonds between its characters. What's so impressive is that it does so with minimal dialogue. Instead, the game relies on the power of Gareth Coker's magnificent soundtrack and the expressiveness of its animation. In the introduction, we see these precious critters playing together, encouraging each other, and building a home. In short, it shows the love of a family. There's nothing that matters more to me in a story than characters, and few games make me care about their cast faster than Ori and the Will of the Wisps does. As I watched the credits roll after finishing it for the first time, one name jumped out at me. Writer Alexander O. Smith. This guy has an impressive body of work to his name, but I know him best from the PS1 cult classic, Vagrant Story. Smith worked as a translator on that game, and its English script is a masterclass in economical storytelling. There's no bloat, no wasted words, just exactly the information you need to understand what's going on, delivered in as pithy a way as possible. While Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a very different game to Vagrant Story, Smith's style and talent are evident in the way the narrative is told. It's quick, it's concise, and it's intense. When the owl Ku spreads her wings and takes flight for the first time, you feel that exhilarating sense of freedom alongside her. And when a storm separates her from Ori, leaving her stranded in the decaying land of Niwen, you feel her fear and Ori's desperation to find his lost friend. Featuring animals, or animal-like creatures, rather than humans, is almost a cheat code to creating quick emotional investment, because it's just so much more upsetting when something sad happens to them. They're so sweet and innocent and cuddly, and you want to protect them at all costs. Seeing this small, helpless owl left alone in a dark, scary world is the ultimate motivation to go on a journey and make sure she gets home safely. Will of the Wisps is bright and colorful, but it contrasts that vibrant charm with a somber tone. Just look at the silent woods, a dead forest covered in ash, where petrified creatures have become part of the landscape. This is where we must venture to save our friend. Your journey will span a variety of other locations too, including a frozen mountain, a coral reef largely untouched by the decay, the crumbling remains of a city buried in sand, and a murky subterranean forest filled with creepy crawlies. You can tackle these areas in any order you want, and they each feature distinct mechanics, like bubbles you can bounce on, or pervasive darkness that consumes you if you linger for too long. But Ori's moveset is what makes the gameplay special. Like any Metroidvania, you'll amass an arsenal of abilities that allow you to traverse the world in different ways. By the end of the game, you'll be able to breathe underwater, burrow through sand, grapple onto enemies from a distance, and more. But two abilities in particular form the core of the game's mechanical identity. The first is called Bash. It lets you freeze an enemy or projectile in midair, and use it to launch yourself in one direction, while sending them the other way. The genius of this mechanic is that it's equally useful in platforming, combat, and puzzle solving. You can use Bash to scale the impressively vertical environments, lob a boss's attacks back at them, or redirect a projectile toward a destructible wall. It's designed to be used in conjunction with another ability called Light Burst. which tosses a ball of light into the air. Essentially, you can bash on your own projectiles to reach higher ground. Chaining these two moves together requires some skill to master, but feels great to pull off. You'll have ample opportunity to practice these techniques. Most 2D platformers don't have big action set pieces, but they're a highlight of both Ori games. Blind Forest used dramatic escape sequences in lieu of boss fights, which made sense for that first game because the combat wasn't super strong. But Will of the Wisps has the best of both worlds. There are more options in battle, which makes fighting enemies more dynamic, and it's especially thrilling when a standard boss fight suddenly transitions into a chase sequence. The feeling of bashing and light bursting your way through a collapsing environment as you flee from the giant beast pursuing you, while the music soars to epic heights, is just glorious. Sometimes, though, Will of the Wisps is happy to just let you relax and soak up the comfy, cozy vibes. One of my favorite things to do in any game is build up a town or base. Whether it's your pirate hideout in Skies of Arcadia, Mother Base in Metal Gear Solid 5, or Terrytown in Breath of the Wild, it's always a joy to help a thriving community grow out of nothing. Will of the Wisps has its own, small-scale version of this, Wellspring Glades. It's not much of a home at first. There are brambles everywhere and the water is poisonous. But a character named Grom has promised to make it a haven from the encroaching decay. Provide him with materials found out in the world to complete various building projects. You'll purify the water, build tree houses, and grow plants. It's rewarding to make a home for the various NPCs you meet along the way, and returning to this hub after completing each level is the perfect palate cleanser. It's nice to have these moments of calm, because Will of the Wisps is an emotional roller coaster. After the opening act rips your heart into a million tiny pieces, the rest of the game slowly stitches it back together. No spoilers, but the climax is just beautiful. It hits all the feelings. It's sad, but also hopeful and life-affirming. I'm not always the most sentimental person, so it's special anytime a game succeeds in making me feel anything. I can count the number of games that have made me cry on one hand. The Last Guardian, Final Fantasy XV, Death Stranding. My eyes always well up a bit when the music crescendos during the intro of FF7 Remake, but there are no actual tears running down my face, so I don't know if you want to count that. But the ending of Ori and the Will of the Wisps makes me ugly cry every single time. The story, characters, and themes are lovely and tender, and the soundtrack is a big, warm hug. Even the greatest games of all time have shortcomings, however small they may be. Final Fantasy VII has a rough translation. Metal Gear Solid 3 has that Eva escort mission through the jungle. In Red Dead Redemption 2, my horse keeps running into the damn trees. Will of the Wisps has flaws too, namely some technical issues. But in the context of what this game is and what it achieves, any criticism feels like a nitpick at best. A powerful narrative, lovable characters, intricate level design, fun gameplay that has just the right amount of depth and challenge, and an unforgettable soundtrack. I don't know what more you could ask for. There's no such thing as a perfect video game, but Ori and the Will of the Wisps comes pretty damn close.